always loved the idea of summer and sun and all things hot.
Really? I'm guessing you don't have much experience with heat.
Nope. But sometimes I like to close my eyes and imagine what it'd be like when summer does come.
We are imagining what it would be like when summer does come.
I'm just glad that my battery started this morning in the car.
Yeah. How are things up on the mountain anyway?
Cold. 2.
All right.
2 degrees.
We're going to stop talking about us and start talking to Susan Olsen, who has joined us. Good morning.
Good morning. We had such cold weather here the other day that Diesel in the tractor gelled up and
no.
Hubby got stuck down at the bottom of the luge.
Ooh, that's a luge.
Well, we actually were waiting for the Olympic Committee to come and see whether it's going to be suitable for the Boston Winter Olympics.
Susan's got a driveway that's kind of curvy and steep. So.
Well, when the thundering hordes of squirrels approach, we figure that we'll be at an advantage.
You will, yes. You will have the uphill advantage. So let's talk about, we were going to talk about a hearing this week, weren't we?
Oh, my goodness. We had quite a hearing on Thursday, in fact. Senate Bill 116, sponsored by Senate Majority Leader Jeb Bradley, co-sponsored by Senator David Booten, and Representative J.R. Holmes.
Well, 1 out of 3 ain't bad.
Well, I tell you what, I really want to thank Senator Bradley. He worked with us for several months getting this language put together and understanding the importance of these small changes that we hope to make to New Hampshire law. The bill is, as the senator introduced it, a modest bill, and you guys know how modest I am. Now. But the bill actually is quite simple. It does a couple of things. It makes optional the license to carry a firearm loaded outside of your house, and to carry that loaded firearm on your person or in your car, or concealed, as you might hear the term used. It would extend the optional license, which is currently 4 years, to 5 years, and it would direct the New Hampshire Department of Public Safety to enter into negotiations with like agencies in other states to extend reciprocity of that license. And you wouldn't believe, out of the hundreds of people that showed up at the hearing in Representatives Hall on Thursday, that only 4 voiced their opposition. And I bet you can't guess which 4.
Well,
a police officer?
There was certainly the chief of Tufton Borough Police Department, who also serves as the president of the New Hampshire Association of Chiefs of Police.
Didn't he kind of embarrass himself?
Well, you know, he was speaking without notes, and people don't always do well speaking without notes, but I'm fearful that perhaps he misunderstood the intent of the bill in a couple of areas. We also had a gentleman who's the head of the licensing division at the Department of Public Safety, who was not a happy camper. We had a darling little old lady from somewhere on the seacoast who was just scared. And then we had an anonymous woman say that the reason that nobody showed up in opposition is because they feared it was a firing squad.
Yeah, they get intimidated. I've heard that in the 90s. They used to use that all the time.
Yeah, well, you know, I find it astonishing that women of all people would want to leave their fates in the hands of uniformed officers. I don't get it. If you're a liberated woman, if you believe in equal rights and equal this and equal that, why wouldn't you want to be equal to any threat you might encounter. I don't get it.
Well, you're talking about especially young women, college age, that got upset in a college in Massachusetts just because there was a statue of a man in his underwear, and they were all having nightmares and heebie-jeebies and nervous fits and hysteria. It's like, I am woman, hear me roar until something comes out my face.
Whine.
Yeah, whine.
Okay.
So,
and it's funny you say that.
Actually, if that statue was at Holyoke, Mount Holyoke, they could just say he was a girl.
Well, he could be an emerging transgender.
Mm-hmm, he could.
He could be emerging in his underwear. I have no idea.
What kind of underwear was he wearing?
briefs.
Whose underwear?
Tighty-whities.
Was it the boxer briefs, the tighty-whities, or those boxers
color
that I
was
wonder
that
why
underwear?
any man wears them? A little bit of history back in first time I went to Reps Hall for the proposed assault weapon ban in 1991. The gun owners had broke all records of attendance in the Reps Hall. In the press named us the Iron Bottom Brigade because it filled Reps Hall, filled the gallery, and standing all around.
Amazing.
And orange and camo everywhere. And the woman who lost a daughter due to a situation, the reason why this bill was up, as the other reps and senators heard how many gun owners were in Reps Hall, they started removing their names. So the chair would be saying, so-and-so removed the name, so-and-so removed the name. And at the end of the day, the only ones left sitting with this woman who lost her child were us.
Amazing.
Okay, they all bailed on her. And it's a fact. And then, so the folks that were running gun owners in New Hampshire at the time went down and talked to her and said, we're not the enemy.
Holy moly.
These they're using you as a pawn for a political move. And now they're all gone.
Yeah, that's what
and here we
happens.
are sitting with you, talking, and that's politics, and that's
politics,
that
it's true.
type of we're intimidated. With the gun owners are the most respectful. They never get out of line that I've ever heard.
No.
And
An
you're
armed
told
society is a polite society.
that's right, and you're told by like gun owners in New Hampshire would always say back then, be respectful, courteous, polite, and just don't lash out as much as you ticked off that you just had to lose a day of work for something that, is guaranteed to you in writing. And,
Hey, Susan, do you want to hang into the next segment a little bit?
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, because we're going to run out of time in a minute, and I didn't want us to talk over your whole segment, but I did want to say that Kimberly sent something out, and it had, on Twitter, and it had, like, the New Hampshire Democrat Party and somebody named Granite Grandma or something like that.
Granite Grandma?
And Kimberly was making the point that, a woman should arm herself, that it's a choice, that women can make, and Granite Grandma said pro-choice, only cops should have guns, and I responded, Stalin would agree with you.
Yeah.
And that I haven't heard back yet.
That's really true.
Well, it's pro-choice only when you want to kill babies.
That's right.
That is correct.
And that's not really pro-choice. That's pro-abortion.
Yes.
It's a whole misnomer.
So, Susan, another minute or two. So a great turnout. I heard, of course, Ian
Underwood.
Underwood had another great speech.
I
It's like
gotta
an annual
post it
event.
again.
A lot of other people stood up. I know there's been some debate about police officers showing up in uniform at a civilian hearing, which of course is a bad thing, but we need to talk about that too. That's another thing we need to blog about. We need to make people aware of why that's.
It happens all the time.
That's the reverse of the intimidation you were talking about before.
Yeah.
Well, they were the only ones, the little old ladies in their T-shirts who were so terrified. The only firearms I saw were the ones on the hips of the law enforcement guys. So maybe they're scared of them too. I don't know.
Well, I have watched over a number of blog sites, and you always hear the anti-gunners saying, well, I'm scared to go out because I don't know who has a gun. Yet, as you were talking about, Guy, those who have concealed licenses or permits, depending what the legal language is in each state, they are, as a group, far more respectful of the laws than any other group. They are more careful with their weapons than even the police.
Firearms.
We don't call them weapons.
Firearms.
They're firearms.
Okay, all right, I stand corrected. But when you come down to it, the people you want to be with the most are those who actually own firearms, because they are the most legally abiding people, period. And they are much less apt to make a bad mistake as well. I mean, you see all the time, cop leaves rifle on top of cop's car, Cop shoots self in foot, cops shoot innocent bystanders, and then they talk about us not being able to shoot straight. And I'm not trying to disparage the police. Those are just the stats.
They are indeed the stats. And when we come back from break, if you haven't had a chance to look at them, Emily Sandblade, former state rep, put together some data sets and analyses that kind of blew everybody away.
Well, we'll come back and talk about those. Everybody stay tuned, and maybe we'll even talk about how I am going to rebrand the Granite State Progress as a criminal advocacy group. Stay tuned.
When asked whether she still supports Obamacare, Senator Jeanne Shaheen said,
"Yes, I do continue to support the law. We're beginning to see some positive results."
How can Senator Shaheen say we're seeing positive results when 22,000 of our neighbors have already lost their health insurance? What's worse, the Boston Globe reports the state's only health insurance provider radically reduced the number of hospitals in their network, forcing some people to drive over an hour for lab work, even when there's a hospital within a few miles of their home. When pressed about lack of access, Shaheen said,
"There are some hospitals that are not covered, unfortunately, and I certainly hope that's going to change."
Jeanne Shaheen promised us we could keep our doctors and our healthcare coverage. Now she hopes we can get to a local hospital? Call Senator Shaheen at 603-647-7500. Tell her we need more than hope. We need leadership. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. You're listening to Grok Talk.
3, 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, granitegrok.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from granitegrok.com.
Grok Talk.
Welcome back to Grok Talk, here in chilly Concord, New Hampshire. We have Susan Olsen on the line. We have Jane Cormier in studio. Of course, Skip's with me. Mike is stuck in New York, probably listening to the show, maybe not. Who knows? I don't even know what his connectivity situation is like, but
better than ours.
It could be better than ours. We've had some interesting days. And Guy Comtois stayed with us. We had our legislative update. We are currently talking to Susan about SB 116 and the hearing. Welcome back.
Thanks. It was really a terrific day. It was a long day, and we started at 1, promptly on time. And actually, security was asking us to leave by about 5:15. But Senator Carson allowed every single person in the hall an opportunity to speak. So we thank the senator for her patience. It was a long day for everybody, but a good day.
That is a long day.
Yeah. Now, the thing that was probably most disconcerting to me, and perhaps others, I don't know, was what seemed to be a misunderstanding or lack of understanding. I'm not going to call it a deliberate mischaracterization because I don't know that, of federal law, federal firearms laws, and whether or not the state of New Hampshire abides by them. The chief from Tufton Borough on television certainly said that to change the pistol revolver license, which is what we're seeking to do, would put firearms in the hands of 13 and 14-year-olds.
What?
Yeah, he did. And the 1968 Gun Control Act clearly, expressly prohibits not just the sale or transfer, but the possession of a pistol or revolver in the hands of what they call a juvenile. And a juvenile is defined in federal law as anyone under the age of 18. Now, perhaps the chief was conflating the illegal possession with the legal possession. And by legal possession, meaning they can't. So if he's going to say 13 and 14-year-olds are going to be granted pistol and revolver license applications by their local law enforcement, he needs to have a chat with local law enforcement, because if they're doing that, they're violating federal law, not just state law.
Did anybody slap him down for that?
Well, in his testimony, you don't really have the opportunity to jump in the middle of that, although I'm always inclined to do so. He spoke after most of us, and he was interviewed on WMUR saying those things, so we really didn't. But not only did he say that, but he said it again in front of the hearing. We'll have a videotape of all 4.5 hours, I'm hopeful, by the end of the weekend, and we'll take that clip out and examine his remarks closely. We'll transcribe them, and maybe he just misspoke. I'm hoping that that's the case. Other folks, particularly the moms, appear to be concerned that making the license optional would, of course, put firearms in the hands of domestic abusers. Well, again, the 1968 Gun Control Act expressly prohibits the sale, transfer, or possession of pistols and revolvers in the hands of people convicted of misdemeanor domestic abuse or misdemeanor violation of a restraining order. So people need to do their homework. The problem with that is very few people do, and these folks just get up and talk, and people take what they say at face value, and they don't look. So what you're left with, even if they come back and say, "Oh, gee, I was wrong," it doesn't really matter, because people don't come back and review. So we are putting together a little bit of a report to talk about both of these issues. They're just wrong, and deliberately trying to frighten people is not a good thing.
And, of course, nobody in the media was going to question him, right?
Well, Adam Sexton seems like a nice kid.
He is.
But out of the hundreds of people that were there, he gave FaceTime to 2 of 4 opponents. And the one woman he interviewed, he allowed her to be anonymous on camera. What she doesn't know is she's not anonymous. We know who you are. But she's one of the Newcastle Promise folks and Moms Demand Action folks.
Well, I want to tie both you and Guy's segments together, because you said not doing the homework. Guy said not really paying attention. They both are one and the same. And I just have to say, for most people who are just trying to live their lives, take care of their families, do their careers, do their other stuff, government is barely a blip on their radar screen. Now, is that a goodness or a badness? I would say if government acted and behaved the way that it was originally intended to, it would be a goodness. 4 or 5 levels down. The problem is, we all know, being the news and political junkies and activists that we are, we know bad stuff happens when people aren't looking. And people only take attention to the sound bites. Our attention span is about as long as my ADD kids is.
Well, you're exactly right, Skip. Ostensibly, we elect people, and we entrust the management of government to these people. And we do go about our lives. We're working, we're paying mortgages, we're running kids back and forth to school, we're taking them to the doctor, we're doing all of the things that we're supposed to do to be good people, good parents, and good citizens. And we believe our elected officials are looking out for our best interests. Well, that's just doesn't seem to be the case, increasingly so.
I think part of the problem is that we're not dealing with the same population that we were even 5 years ago. I think a lot of the people that are not paying attention that we're discussing right now, a huge portion of that population is just disgusted and feels like there's no hope. And what does it matter? So
squirrels.
Well, that's true. You get to a point where you go, geez, what difference does it make?
Right.
And we become guilty by default of that. And I would agree with you. But bear in mind, and there's an awful lot of young people who, like those of us who are a bit older, grew up in cultures where there were certain pieces of, I guess, accepted wisdom. Young women today view, forgive me, abortion as just, hey, it's just fact of life. When those of us who are a bit older don't necessarily believe that. But when you're inundated with cultural nonsense, when you don't do your homework, when there are no consequences, when your behavior is not corrected,
right?
How do you deal with that? I don't know. I've been speaking with a young woman for a couple of weeks now who's doing a research paper on women and firearms. And she came to the table with some ideas based on her understanding of culture. And it's been quite a nice process because she's going, I didn't know that. I didn't see that. In fact, she attended the hearing on Thursday. And I'm going to be teaching her a basic pistol class in a couple of weeks because now she wants to learn.
I think you're exactly right. We have seen a culture that has become unmoored from traditional values and traditional mores. That was one of the unifying things that kept us as a culture together. We have become fragmented. We have become divided. And it's along just a gazillion different lines depending on what the topic or issue is. I tie it back to the progressive mantra, and they've been at this for about 110 years now, where government is only to be looked upon as being benign and acting in our own self, in our best interest. And yet we see time after time in the most progressive administration ever that these bureaucrats are not nonpartisan. They don't have our best interests at heart. No. And no, they don't even follow the standard rule of government, which is the legislation. The legislators make law where they themselves are making law themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And that, I think,
administrative state.
That is correct. I rail about it all the time. But in the culture, since the 60s, and I will say my generation is probably the worst generation ever in America, the boomers, because of this. They are the ones who argued, don't trust anybody over 30 when they were in their 20s. And now they're running the place.
Yeah, unless it's us.
Yeah, now they're running the place.
Yeah, we could go. That's deep, though. We could get a lot deeper than.
Well, we could. We could. But you see the movement away from traditional mores built on history and traditions and on facts and a well-educated populace to all I got to do is, Jay Leno's walkabouts, or now on O'Reilly, Jesse Waters, just partial interviews, and you go,
Holy
oh
moly.
My gosh,
Yeah.
These guys are going to be our future leaders.
Yeah.
They're not going to be the future leaders. They're going to be the sheep. There's always people who want to be the leaders who get the scam and end up being elected, and it's a shame.
Isn't it interesting, though, that we're sitting here? Yeah, sheep. There we go. That the truth of the matter is
home again?
Yeah, right. You got
Gotta go check the sheep.
that if the further we get away from the human condition, whether you're talking about home wars, whether you're talking about power, right? Because most of all this terrible stuff that we're seeing in our government is because of the failing of the human condition. Because we tend to be corruptible, which was the whole point of what our government was supposed to answer, right?
Yeah, but that's the whole thing about progressives. They wish to progress
right
forward. Now, they never mention what it is,
right.
But one of their underlying tenets is that you can be advanced. We can educate you to a higher plane.
I get it.
They've, except for the most cynical at the very top, I believe, they really do believe that all the stuff that they pass is for our own good, to teach us how to behave better.
Right.
Like we don't have the choice to behave.
One of the things that's automatically included in Obamacare is a lobotomy. You know that, right? There are no co-pays. There's no deductible on that. You just go and get it.
Really?
It's very sad.
Well, that's good. That's not bad, because after you're done at the State House, I suppose a lobotomy to make you forget everything that you
just went for.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this, by the way, for the folks at home, this squirrel I invented, if it's near a football that's not inflated at the proper things.
Bad.
Right there.
Sorry, we will not allow you to co-opt our squirrel mascot.
Okay.
Do you know what that squirrel is? It's because it's like 1,000 different topics spoken at once.
Yeah, we're being relatively calm and non-intrusive.
Yes.
We're letting people talk today, at least me.
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, you know, one thing that always gets me, I got to clear up here. People are elected to look out for our best interest. We take an oath to the Constitution. Okay.
What's that?
When you're elected, but you don't take an oath to people's best interest.
Correct.
Okay, because
Rule of law.
That's when you have all these groups who believe, that they know better than the Constitution. So your oath strictly to the Constitution. Like it or hate it.
Follow it.
Fact.
Correct.
Okay? So everything comes in front of you, the first thing you're supposed to do up there is see if this violates the Constitution at all, or props it up.
Senator Daniels, in fact, asked the chief that very question.
Ooh, do tell.
Well, he simply said, how do you square this position with not just the U.S. Constitution, but the New Hampshire Constitution? And it was sort of a humana thing. Mm-hmm. It was a very awkward moment, and I cannot wait to get my hands on the videotape. But
that should be special.
It was spectacular, and while we think, oh my goodness, he should ask such a question, Guy's exactly right. That's the first question you should ask. Is this completely in accordance with the New Hampshire Constitution and the U.S. Constitution? End of game. Ian Underwood said, either words mean something or they don't.
That's right.
Yes.
And if you go back, and not to say that we don't look out for the best interests of the people, but if you look at the history of the country, when we were abiding by the Constitution,
we do better.
Is when this country was just flying.
Yeah.
I mean, when we became the industrial power, when you were allowed to just go, when you actually, the American dream was actually alive, which late 1800s.
We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk with Jane about some things that happened with our governor and the budget. Susan, you're welcome to stay on the line if you want. Your choice. We'll be right back.
Have you got 30 seconds just to say the bill's going to be exec on Tuesday in Senate Judiciary?
Sure.
Please let your senators know that you support 116 as it is written.
All righty.
Pass.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
See you soon.
Bye.
This is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning. The Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.